It's time for MacBreak Weekly, episode 195. This week, brand new MacBooks, Chris Breen's beanbag, and a kinder, gentler Steve Jobs. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 195 for May 18th, 2010. Gold-plated Electrons. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Improve your conference calls and keep everyone on the same page when you share your screen with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. And by Carbonite, the leader in online backup. Back up your PC or Mac off-site securely and automatically. For a free trial offer plus 2 free months with purchase, go to Carbonite.com. Offer code MacBreak. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers everything going on in the world of Apple, from Cupertino to South Cupertino. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the stars of our show today. Alex is still in Africa. In fact, he's in transit, so no bandwidth for him. But that's fine, because we've got a great cast of characters, starting with Chris Breen, the Mac Daddy from Macworld Magazine. He's a senior editor over there at Macworld.com. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Leo, how are you? I
love the set. Now, every week that you're on, you're going to feature a different album on the wall behind you there?
Yeah, last time I was on, I had We're Only in It for the Money by the Mothers of Invention, and today we have Klaus Schulze's Mirage album.
Wow, I don't even know that. Is it progressive?
It is. It's 1970s electronica like Tangerine Dream.
Oh, I love Tangerine Dream.
That's good.
So it's like...
It's before they went really commercial.
Yeah. It's like one better.
Yeah.
Merlin Mann's the guy going, ooh, from 43folders.com. He has a cream-colored backdrop behind him.
I had some of my daughter's art up.
It fell. It fell off the wall.
Well, it's a little abstract for this crowd.
It was a little bit like Tangerine Dream.
Next week, I'll bring something with hers that has an excellent negative capability that will be less conceptual and more representational. Perhaps something you can handle.
I could do with some figurative art. Speaking of figurative, here he is.
Sorry.
The glum-faced Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. Good morning, Andrew.
I was just taking a moment to reflect on the uselessness of daily existence and how shows like this are just a way to distract ourselves from the larger issues and the smaller issues that render all of existence so very futile.
Thank you, Jean-Paul Sartre.
Ladies and gentlemen, Horkheimer and Adorno.
So very, very futile.
This is why, you see, MacBreak Weekly is the most intelligent show on the internet.
More soda. I'll be okay.
He's just depressed. He's just a little depressed.
That's a little bit more phosphoric acid.
Let's see. Well, there's a new MacBook. They finally revved the MacBook, the white polycarbonate MacBook, to be actually pretty close to the 13. I would say that at this point, it's kind of a push between the two. They've added the NVIDIA 320 mobile chipset, which is a big step up. Have you played with it yet, Chris Breen?
I have not. I saw the news out of Vietnam last week that this was coming out, and so to me, this is just old news, as it is to most of the internet.
Do you have a background, Chris? Do you have a background in improv? Because you're yes and.
Yes and. He's good. He's not a no but. He's a yes and.
Yes and.
Yes and.
Yeah. No, they did.
10-hour battery life.
Yeah. This is sort of what they've been doing. They've been keeping the plastic one out there, so for people who need that plastic and want that $1,000-ish price tag, it's a perfectly nice laptop. I mean, the nice thing about these plastic ones is that they're solidly built. They've got good battery life now.
10 hours.
10 hours, and they perform really well. So it's not like you go in and you feel like you're buying the the Play School laptop, and like, well, at least it's got the Apple logo, and I got the 2 little stickers in here, so that's good.
I think it's the default for schools, though, for education, things like that. That's the price point.
Well, not only that, but that's a big deal to have something even $1 below $1,000. Yep. That's one big gap that still remains in the MacBook line. It's a little bit off-putting that Apple's way of doing the cheap MacBook is to build something that is still as expensive as, but if also the same high quality as a low premium model Windows notebook. I mean, if you walk into a computer store with $1,000 to buy a Windows machine, you're definitely in premium class. But at least they're trying. But that's my aunt. I bought my aunt that same model about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and that's exactly how I had to put it. That it's $1,000 as opposed to $650 for a Windows notebook, but this is the equivalent of any premium Windows machine you would buy.
There's no pressure really on Apple to meet the Windows PC prices, is there?
There should be. I mean, it's not that there isn't pressure. It's just that they feel as though they've given up on that. It would be great if they could simply say, you know what, Dell, you stopped making the Mini 10V. What if we were to license that, slap a logo on it, make it only available through education in blister packs of 10, and we could sell them to schools for $500 a copy? That would be an interesting development.
There's kind of a precedent for that. The eMate was Newton OS for schools. It was cheap.
Yeah, but it was
crappy.
It was too much. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was nice for what it is. I have one upstairs, as a matter of fact. But it really was a solution in chasing after a problem. I think people really want to have a Mac that they only have $500 or $600 or $700 in their pockets to spend on a notebook. They might want a $1,000 notebook, and even though that's the cheapest one, they still can't afford it.
Well, let me make. I have nothing inside information on this. But you think about a store. Think about when you go to like the electronics district in New York, Manhattan, and you go, whatever, DVD player, $35. Well, you only really need to have one of those in the store sometimes to say that you've got a $35 DVD player. I'm not saying it's that cynical, but gesture.
What happened?
Did I go away?
Well, you something very strange happened. Your mic.
The murderer is getting closer to your office, Merlin.
There's someone in the house.
I think I might have been a USB.
You're coming through the wrong mic. Yeah, I don't know.
My USB situation. Am I better now?
Yeah, you're better now.
I wonder if it's. I mean, to call it a gesture is probably a little bit cynical, but it certainly doesn't hurt. When you work with salespeople, you learn something interesting about what their life and what their day is like. There's certain things that salespeople need to be able to say. And in order to compete with somebody who is buying on price, certainly it's not the first thing Apple's worrying about, but it must be nice that they can say, well, hey, sure, we got products that start under $1,000. It's just that ours work, or what, you know what I mean? You need something with a hook, and that price gives them a way to say that.
Somebody pointed out in the chat room too, it's probably true in many small businesses that the $1,000 price point triggers more of a purchase, approval process.
It's like the federal per diem. Like I work with a lot of clients who are like, that's per diem. So if it's $159 a night, you can stay wherever you want.
Any you want. Yeah, right. Yeah. Our per diem is about 38 cents. I think that Motel 6, you can get a room for 38 cents.
But for hotels and stuff, that becomes like a de facto standard. I wonder if there's something similar.
That's right. That's right. The hotels probably set their prices based on that, don't they?
Oh, they do. The Ace in Seattle, where I am happy to stay. Say hi, Ed. If anybody say hi to Ed at the Ace Hotel in Seattle, best place ever. Don't take 123. That's mine. But it's fantastic. It's exactly.
How often do you go to Seattle that you have a room there?
Don't worry about the other part of my life, Leo. You don't need to know that. but it's exactly $1 under the per diem. Probably not intentionally. Not per diem, but you know what I mean? The federal limit.
Do you have a family in the Pacific Northwest you're not telling us?
I got a family everywhere. There was a time when intercourse was very important to me. But responsibility is not. But I like a clean hotel room, and I like to have a place with a sink and a window.
And tiled walls and floors and a drain right in the middle that slopes downward. Ask for the Merlin Mann Nightmare Suite.
sounds like Saw 6.
Give me the Gitmo room.
So
complimentary bleach for all 3 night stays.
NPD has come out with some data, and I'm told that NPD's data is pretty reliable, that they're a good company to go with. And apparently, the iPad has not, as I might have thought, cannibalized notebook sales. I thought for sure, well, you get this instead of the, this is kind of Apple's netbook, isn't it, this iPad? In fact, there's a 17% decline in iPod sales, and Mac sales are up 39%.
would bet that it theoretically cannibalizes sales largely in people who don't currently own a Mac computer device. So you got somebody who's been working up, you know what I mean? Somebody who starts with the iPod, the classic path.
So this is the Mac Mini, the new Mac Mini, maybe.
Well, just I'm thinking like, let's be honest. Most of us dorks who bought this already have a Mac or more. It's not like we're not going to buy a Mac now. It's, we want a wallet and a suitcase, right?
Right.
Did they look at trends from last year and the year before?
This is just this quarter. U.S. Mac sales climbed 39% in April. April has always been an excellent month for Apple.
Yeah, but it's not generally a good month for iPod sales, is it?
Yeah, I'd like to see how they connect the dots on that, because iPod sales have been declining for quite some time. Not the iPod Touch has been doing well because it's a small computer, but traditional iPods have been declining because everybody has one already, and Apple hasn't released anything other than the Touch that's revolutionary that people really want to go out and buy. So I'm not sure how they make that connection that, oh, look, the iPad exists. And iPod sales are going down too. So
NPD may not be. I haven't looked at the NPD report. It may be just, the headline writers, which is often a problem, frankly, these days. I'm going to have to start reading articles, because every time I read the headline, it's wrong. Well, this is the latest thing on the cell phone, the longitudinal study on cell phones, which is basically completely inconclusive. Everywhere the headline is "cell phones cause cancer," it's really interesting if you get your news from headlines, which I think almost everybody does, because who has time? You're going to get the wrong picture of almost everything. So maybe NPD didn't say that. Maybe that's just what the
it's also a problem because usually the headline isn't written by the same person who wrote the actual column itself. So
they're trying to drive traffic.
Yeah, they have to put cancer in the headline, regardless of what it's about.
Oh, man, I was watching CNN, and they botched the story so badly. This was a couple of days ago. And then she pulls out an earpiece and says, all you have to do is do this, and you're safe, which, of course, there's no mention of this in the study at all. And, in fact, everybody I've talked to said, well, actually, the earpiece makes it worse because it conducts the RF right into your ear, and then... And like it's like an antenna, and then she says, or wear a Bluetooth. What could be the problem there? There's no transmitter in that. Freaking.
I hear this is kind of certain kind of NPR story where you don't find out until the penultimate paragraph that it's totally written from a press release.
Yeah.
You start out, you got some kind of headline, you talk to a person, you talk a little bit, you talk to another person. I'm not just blaming NPR for this, but you notice this everywhere. You realize that with short resources in the newsroom, I'm guessing a lot of stuff is written from press releases, and let's be honest, it's written by people who are not PhDs.
And now that the web traffic is so important, they're also writing headlines to drive clicks. So it's even more sensational, I think, than it used to be.
HuffPo A/B test. Have we talked about this? No. HuffPo A/B test their headlines. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. To see which gets more clicks.
Every headline is apparently, I am told that every headline on HuffPo, and there's a lot of headlines. Wow. They basically
and a lot of capital letters.
Look at that. That's a headline.
It's a lot of aging audience. But
what does that say?
The A/B test, and after so many minutes, they pick the one that got more clicks.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Journalism.
A good editor knows in his gut what's going to get more clicks, I think. Anyway.
And so they're saying you get the cancer from any kind of phone. This seems like a story.
No, they're not saying that.
Yeah, there's...
It's precisely what they're not saying.
Story, but I mean, this is one of those, how health became like a section of the paper in the 80s. Clearly, we got an aging population and a lot of nervous people in fleece. And so you start having all these stories. This is an evergreen story. Is there anything out there? Is there really a longitudinal study that shows anything significant here?
No.
Okay.
There's a new study. Bizarre. A new study came out, which actually just came out, and I haven't read it yet because everybody else was doing it from leaked versions of it. And it was a study of people that asked them how much they use the phone, like on the phone. How much do you use your phone? A lot. And based on 10 years ago, they asked them. This isn't even they asked them yesterday. They asked them 10 years ago, and then they checked in 10 years later to see, well, are you dead? And they said, even after all of this and all of the error that introduces, they said, on people who used it an awful lot, there might be a slight increase in, I think it was gliomas, a certain kind of cancer,
but these are tech people and they're people on phones. And how do you control for the million other things that somebody who's around electronic equipment all day might be subjected to? That's just one data point of hundreds. It's it drives me crazy the way scientific stuff and people who don't understand statistics and science bend this stuff into a headline. Anyway, sorry, not to rant, but it's really frustrating because that's the kind of thing that's going to make a lot of people really anxious. And just to be dead honest, I mean, I think you always got to ask, where did the funding for this come from? There are so many studies out there where nobody mentions that it was an industry group that funded it.
Well, this wasn't the cell phone companies, I would imagine, that came up with this one.
But it could have been somebody. It could have been somebody who's building a reputation for writing that kind of article inside of a university that gets a lot of funding. I don't know why, but that's the headline.
Now, it's funny because same study and a report in Nature, the headline is "No link found between mobile phones and cancer." So obviously, it could go either way. It depends.
So it's really nature versus nurture.
Nature versus CNN. So I don't, it's probably appropriate for us to mention this because a lot of our listeners probably are on cell phones quite a bit, and I certainly am I don't want to be a shill for the cell phone industry by any means. If there's danger, let's talk about it. But I get calls every time there's a story like this on the radio show. People go, "Should I get rid of my cell phone?" And then they get bad information like, "Well, wear a Bluetooth headset; it'll be better."
No, I just hold my cell phone at arm's length and I shout.
Hello.
Yeah, I just shout, and I turn on the speakerphone and I just shout like hell, and then people.
I do that reality show thing where you talk to it like it's a piece of pizza, and it's like
I see people doing that now. I saw a guy walking through Costco yesterday, talking on the phone like this. Yeah, well,
that's a reality show douche thing.
Why? Why do they do that?
Because on reality shows, you want to see the Sprint logo or whatever. You go, this week's challenge is really hard. Tim Gunn was really mean to me.
So more because that's where the microphone is.
So you can see the logo.
Where do they don't put the logo on the tiniest edge of it. Come on. For God's sake.
I was on Uni a few weeks ago.
Face, you could see the Apple logo or whatever.
I saw the trifecta. I was on Muni a few weeks ago and I saw the trifecta.
What's the trifecta?
It's a douchebag with the white headphones and his iPhone, and he didn't have the speaker on, but he had the headphones on. But he was doing the douche pizza talk with the headphones on, screaming into the phone, notwithstanding the fact that the microphone is
right next to his lips. Here. That's the other one I like, of people talking to the microphone like that.
Yeah.
It's like when Humphrey Bogart in the movies, he held a cigarette like this, and the whole generation started smoking like that. But he did it because he was embarrassed, because you didn't want in the movies you to see the wet lip marks on his cigarettes.
Also, he was short.
And he was short, and he really wasn't that good looking. Many people, small feet.
Cried at his own wedding, though. I got a lot of aloha for that.
Did he really?
Oh,
to
yeah.
Lauren Bacall, he cried.
He's a good human. You know what the problem is, Leo? Can I say, Leo Laporte? The problem is that people don't understand the difference between causality and what's the word I'm searching for?
It's that false causality thing.
Well, where you see a pattern, and there's lots of things where the lines happen to match up.
Correlation does not equal causality, says.
Yeah, there's a pretty big-haired Canadian
University.
that likes to do this a lot, in my experience.
Who would that be? Big hairy Canadian.
But I mean, just because the lines match up doesn't mean if you're not controlling for other data. I mean, sorry.
It's funny because my wife read what was it?
That's
was
why,
it out?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this school district does not deserve from the hardworking Monsanto Corporation, who only fertilize those ball fields for free with those dioxins, for free, asking for no compensation. The kids loved the fact that the grass was coming up in the school colors of brown, purple, orange, yellow, and blue. They loved it. They could not get enough of it. And if some of them died, kids die. Come on. You want your kids to live forever? What a nice day would that be?
Just a couple kids die, and that means no more. No more dioxins, really.
All right, moving on. Get that Wookiee out of my face. I feel bad because Merlin Mann pointed this out. It's all business stories here. It's business stories all the way down. We'll do a few more, Merlin, and then we'll talk about things that really matter, that change people's lives.
I'm just going to drink some seltzer. You guys go ahead.
If you belch. It's coming out his nose, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk a little bit more in just a bit, but first I do want to mention my friends at Citrix, the folks that do the great GoToMeeting product. Improve your conference calls. Who hasn't been on that long, boring, talk about the trifecta. You're on the conference call on the bus playing, Farmville. That's what happens. People are bored. Their conference calls they're not engaging. They're unproductive. That's where GoToMeeting can really be great. Now, if you've already got it installed, you can literally, while you're on the conference call, say, "No, look, let me just show you how this works," and send them out an invitation or just give them a meeting ID. They don't even have to have anything installed. You say, "Go to GoToMeeting.com. Here's a meeting ID." It'll install, and literally 30 seconds later, they're seeing your desktop. They're seeing the keynote. They're seeing the slides, whatever it is, the spreadsheets, the drawings. You can work together. You can give control to the other meeting conferees. You can share. It's really fantastic. We use GoToMeeting all the time in many ways, and now with this new GoToMeeting app on the iPad, man, I sit out in the backyard out here because I've got Wi-Fi out there, and it's got a microphone. It's got speakers. I can talk. I can watch. I can listen, and it's changed my life. Bring your meetings to life. Save time. Be more productive for sales presentations, for product demos, for training, for collaboration. You could try it free right now. Go to meeting.com/MacBreak. In fact, just if you've got an iPad, go install GoToMeeting on your Mac or your PC. Go to meeting.com/MacBreak. Just start a meeting and then go out in the backyard with your iPad and just watch. It's so cool. Built-in.
May I offer an unpaid testimonial?
Yes, you may, Merlin Man.
I just used it for the first time as a part of my business. I do teleseminars with people, and I just
that's
use it for
neat.
Yeah, it's a good economical way to get into the Merlin business. Look me up.
Yeah, you don't have to leave. Yeah.
But it was an interesting app, and the way they do it on a Mac is really, really interesting. It's but what I liked about it.
You mean interesting good or interesting weird?
It was interesting, a little weird. It wasn't
Like
quite what I expected, but I thought it was. Because it captures your whole screen. If you're on a 2-screen setup, it actually works really well.
Oh, interesting.
But I ended up doing a thing where
because you couldn't like have a window that they looked at.
I brought up Photo Booth to show the video because it's a kind of a hack, but it's a brilliant hack. I must be grabbing your VGA output or something.
I guess
it's
so.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
But the reason I mentioned it, what I liked and what my host really liked was, I guess you've got so many seats that are watching it, and you get an attention metric where it shows you how many people were doing something else at which part in the talk, and they were able to say to me, "Hey, I can tell this part of the talk went over really well."
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, when you do public speaking stuff, metrics apart from number of butts and seats is hard. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of a neat feature. I liked it, and they were really nice in helping us set it up. So
they're good people. I love them. Good company. You should have just used the coupon code. Go to meeting.com/MacBreak. You could have saved money, Merlin.
You kidding me? Those guys pay the freight. I'm the talent.
All right. Yeah, you're the talent. There's also Go to Training now, and there's a seminar thing. I can't remember what the name of that is.
We used to go to seminars.
Go to seminar, yeah. I mean, really, they've done a nice job. We thank them for their support of MacBreak Weekly. In fact, all the Citrix stuff, all the Citrix products and the Citrix folks have been really great for Twit in general. Don't support Jason Calacanis. That's all I ask. It's not the same person. So let's...
Don't even go to any movies that feature Zach Galifianakis. That's how upset.
That's how much. Any Greek name. Any Greek name, I don't want it.
Don't read Jason and the Argonauts. Too close.
Right. In fact, if you've named your kid Jason, time to change.
You're kidding, right? You're kidding.
Of course, I'm kidding. I'm a kidder. Apple may soon be the largest U.S. company in terms of at least stock market value. I don't know if that matters at all. But it's an interesting story in the sense that in 1997, Apple just sucked. Right before Steve Jobs came back, they were. I don't even know if they were on the list. And now, Apple's the third largest company in terms of stock market value. Number 1, ExxonMobil, and it's on the slide. Number 2, Microsoft, and it's on the slide. Maybe by year's end, according to Smart Money, Apple will be the number 1 company.
Is this capitalization?
No, it's stock market value. Yeah, it's the stock price based on number of shares and times the value of the stock, I think, is how it works. Michael Dell, remember in 97? I love this. We got to remind Michael Dell. In 1997, Michael Dell said to an audience of information technology managers, I'd shut Apple down and give the money back to the shareholders. Today, Dell, number 78 on the list.
No, I mean, let's not punch that man down. I mean, at Chipotle, he rolls a great burrito.
No, and it's not his fault. I mean,
he's still working. Okay.
Yeah, he's still.
No, he says that to Steve every single day as he's cleaning out his pool. Steve, in '97, I was right.
Found another rat, Mr. Steve.
Now, if you
take this one home, nice to give some meat for change.
So before we start taking too many shots, Dell still sells more computers. A few more, not a lot more. Remember, Dell's in a much bigger, more competitive market. Apple is number 42 in terms of sales. Dell is number 38 in terms of sales. On the other hand, if you're talking margin, Dell makes a nickel for every dollar, 5%. Apple turns 29 cents of every sales dollar into profit. Oh. There's your price differential right there.
And that's to make a Gruber kind of point. That's a selling on price type situation, right? Their margins are thin, but they've got economies of scale, right? I mean, they're selling this stuff. Is it that the fixed costs of the parts are so costly?
It's the margin on PCs because it's so competitive. Remember, Apple's the only company that makes Apple computers. Again, right. Points to Steve Jobs, who said, let's close down the clones. First thing he did in '98.
How much of a PC that people buy is Windows in terms of like a pie graph? What percentage of the cost is the Windows software?
What is it? It's about I think on a netbook it's $20 or $30, which means it's a huge percentage of the cost. Yeah. On a desktop, it's maybe $50. I can't remember the exact cost. Nobody's saying exactly, but it's in that ballpark.
Yeah, margins on the sub $300 netbooks are next to nothing. It's mostly there for getting marketing share and getting logos in houses and on school desktops.
Even Intel doesn't want it because their Atom processor doesn't make them much money.
Well, what's the exit strategy on that kind of a approach? I mean,
they wish they knew. They would like to exit right now if they could.
Well, I'm thinking of like New Order. There's a story about this band like New Order, and they put out this record called Blue Monday in 1982, and it was a 12-inch. And this is apparently a slightly apocryphal story, but it turned out they had this beautiful cover that actually I think had something like it did spot colors instead of process. So it had like if you're thinking about printing, like it was incredibly costly to have like 9 spot colors on this album cover, and they lost money on what became the best-selling 12-inch of all time.
Oh my God, you're kidding!
So it basically became like drinking salt water. And I'm just curious about like what does success look like if you've got those desktops and those logos? What do you do next with that? You got installed base. You got like what is it?
Well, when somebody's going to buy a desktop or a bigger computer,
okay, maybe
I don't know. Then they say, "Oh, I mean, who's the #1 selling netbook right now? Is it Dell, HP? Is it ASUS? It might be ASUS."
But is there any brand equity in that? Is there anything where somebody
not for
goes,
ASUS?
Wow.
I don't think anybody says, "Oh, now I'm going to buy an ASUS desktop."
A lot of it's just the simple fact that they like to make sure that they can dominate the ad space, they can dominate the end caps at Best Buy. It's a lot of
it's a shelf. It's shelf space.
It's like a Pepsi and Coke kind of thing.
Like the battle between Coke and PC. It's not at this point. It's impossible for either one to win. Now their game is to make sure that everyone else loses. They don't lose worse than everybody else does.
Well, and I think also they've been forced into it. It's not. I mean, the market has said to them, "This is what we want." I guess you could not make them. I mean, that's what Apple's chosen to do, right? Apple is looking at this saying, we're not going to participate in that race to the bottom. We're just going to hold prices. $999 is as low as it goes on a laptop. $600 is as low as it goes on a desktop, and that's where we stay.
But they're still these companies are still making money on $650 and $700 and $800.
It's the $300 ones out there.
Exactly, it's the netbooks where they're taking a killing on. Yeah. That's their Amazon Kindle of the product line.
You talk about 1997, and one thing that strikes me as interesting is if you had, kind of gotten a viewport into the future, certainly it would have been interesting to say, wow, Steve Jobs, was just going to turn this around? That's pretty crazy. But you also have to think a little bit about how interesting it is, how many problems have become not necessarily reversed, but the problems that used to seem really natural for certain companies that you thought these other companies are never going to have. Like now, Apple's got a lot of the same problems in some ways that somebody like a Microsoft's going to have. Like not the same exact problems, but for example, do you remember how fragmented? Chris Breen, back me up on this. Do you remember, and Andy, you remember how fragmented and crazy it was 95, 96, where they had so many. They had the educational line. There was the remember there's the VX debacle, and there were
I mean, they have a Mac for Price Club, they have a Mac for Sears, they have a Mac for every, because they thought, well, we'll just sell them by where we sell them, which made absolutely no sense. And Steve came back and said
it was totally confusing to consumers. I have to imagine it was at least
there were too many SKUs. Yeah.
When sales and the salespeople have, like, that's going to, on some level, I'm talking out of my butt a little bit, but that's going to dilute your brand to have that much stuff out there. And so with Dell, if you're selling on price, I mean, is there, like, if you're a nerd and you're like Andy, you go, oh, there's just one Dell model that's really awesome. But what percentage of people who buy Dells, like, even, like, know what model they have? Do you think?
Well, I mean, it is a completely different sort of marketing. Not only because they have so many different models and so many different companies, but so many different outlets. Oftentimes Windows notebooks are sold like mattresses. Where if you go to one store and you say, well, okay, they have the Sealy Double Diamond Deluxe Plushy Firm Super Deluxe. Now I'll see what and they quoted me a price of $850 for it. Let's go to this other store, and they don't have the Sealy Super Double Black Diamond. They have one that's exactly the same, only they call it something else that makes it difficult to comparison shop. That's the same thing that they do. They have different SKUs for Staples, different for Office Max, different for Best Buy, where they are superficially exactly the exact same machine, but you really can't say that this one is the exact same one as the others.
But one of the reasons they do that is to prevent, is so that they can have variable pricing, so you can't compare apples to apples.
So if you do a Google shopping search for a SKU, you're going to see a bunch of stuff from Best Buy that would not, and there's going to be different enough in like a CNET or Price Grabber type grid.
I look stuff up in Consumer Reports all the time, and it's always interesting to see that you can't quite get that model. You know, and I think that's shows Apple's control of the supply chain and how powerful that is for them.
They want exactly the opposite.
But that works for them because they can have a business. It's almost as if they can have 5 different separate laptop divisions. One that makes a lot of money selling to Best Buy, one that makes a lot of money selling to Staples. That's why that they can really arrange their product lines that way. That's also kind of similar to the way that Apple was running their business back in the 90s, where they had in a sense they had separate and individual companies within Apple. One who only cared about selling to education, one who only cared about selling to high-end business stores, one that cared only about selling through Sears and other major big box retailers. And so that's why if these two guys butt heads, one wins out the other, you're going to have one version of the Mac LC that's for people who know what they're talking about, and one version of the Mac LC that's absolutely identical in every way, but it's called the Centris 620, and it's only sold through Sears. So one of Apple's big advantages in marketing is that they are, despite their size, one company. That there's one ship headed in one direction for good or for ill.
All right,
there's so many economies of scale to that. Remember that scene in Objectified? I'm sorry.
Great.
But there's
movie.
a scene in Objectified where Johnny Ive holds up the unibody, and you see the extraordinary efficiency of the cast for that. And it's like there's economies of scale to that on every level, and every bit of it, not to be so hagiographic, but that helps the brand on so many levels. Because they want you to understand exactly what you've got. Somebody walks up to you and go, "Oh, what do you have? Do you have an original or 3G or 3GS?" You know exactly which phone you have. You don't go like, "I've got the i26 37 stroke whatever." Like they want you to know. So when somebody asks, you go buy this one.
But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that we're typical users. Remember that we have an appreciation for what the 320M processor is going to do for graphics and what's going to do for overall performance. Other people, they want reading, writing, and arithmetic, and they don't get a good answer to the question: how come this one costs $1,000, this other one costs $750?
All right, get ready for a great story. According to the Huffington Post, here's another HuffPo headline: is it true? Apple Store refuses to take cash for an iPad. Let me show you this headline because you're not going to believe it, and we will have the details on that momentarily.
Oh my God, Chris is flatlining. Clear, clear.
Oh no, there it is.
Oh, thank God, refuses is in capital letters.
Refuses. Oh yeah, that's headline writing.
A HuffPo headline without a capital all
Apple
caps
Store
word.
Refuses to take cash for iPad. Details to come as MacBreak Weekly continues with our guest, Chris Breen, the Mac Daddy from Macworld Magazine, senior editor at Macworld.com, with Mr. Merlin Mann from 43folders.com. Ask for him by name. And Andy Ihnatko, who's already saluting from the Chicago Sun-Times. It's like you two are in the same room together.
Almost.
Hey, Andy, how's it going?
I don't know how you do that.
You look good.
Stop tickling me. They've been lovers for years, and now the truth finally comes out. You see, next time, hang up something different in the background. Just
brothers, lovers, or both. You decide.
separated at birth.
I've got a Tangerine Dream album that I'd be happy to send to both of you, and you put that in the background.
I'm a Kraftwerk man, but I would make out with Andy to pretty much any genre.
I have some of that too. I'll send you one of those.
Fahren auf der Autobahn. Fahren auf der Autobahn. I thought you were too young for Kraftwerk.
Das Spiegelglas.
Wenn das Kinder was, das Kinder waren. All right, let's...
Wings to Desire. I know that.
Oh, you're good. Oh, you can't get a Wim Wenders reference past this man. Did you see that Werner Hertzog is going to make a 3D movie, Andy? Did you ask him that in the cab? Did you say, Werner, what the hell's that all about?
No, I was too busy trying to make sure my soul did not get ripped out of my body by his blackness.
You there with the sideburns. You're my Kinski now.
What is it he said to you? What is it you do?
He said, so what is your story? And then when I said that I'm a technology writer, do you read poetry? Which creeped me out. And then the third one was, I said, well, I don't really like poetry. I never really got into it. I tried to write it just to see if I could understand why I didn't like it. But I didn't like it. So I'm sorry. What I meant was, do you have time in your life for the arts and for creative things? And I said, well, I write some things, and I like P.J. Woodhouse.
Please, sir, I just would like to live.
Can I just send one last text message to one of my loved ones before?
When we get out of this cab, I will have you push a steamboat.
All right, let's take a break. Take a break. Smoke them if you got them, guys. In fact, I know you have one, Merlin.
I have no idea what you mean.
If you'd like to light up a Nicaraguan, go ahead. As long as he gives you permission. But first, my friends, it's time to tell you about the good folks at Carbonite. Carbonite, back up. I do this on the radio show. I say, folks, if you're listening to me and you haven't backed up, don't come crying to me if you lose your photos of your baby pictures. Don't come crying to me if your financial documents go away, because I've been telling you for years about Carbonite. Carbonite is the kind of backup I recommend. I quote Peter Krogh, who wrote the DAM book, Digital Asset Management book. He's a great photographer, really smart guy. He came up with what he calls 3-2-1 backup. Very simple. And this really doesn't have anything to do with Carbonite, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. 3-2-1. You need 3 copies of your most vital data. And for him, he's a photographer. It's pictures, but it could be your financial documents, your emails, music, whatever it is that you can't afford to lose. If you're a business, you know what it is. So 3 copies of it. That could be one on your computer, the one you're using. That could be a local backup. 2 of those copies have to, and I love this, this is brilliant, have to be on different media. So don't make it all hard drive. Don't make it all DVD. 2 different kinds of media. And finally, one of them's got to be off-site. That's so important because, people make backups. Maybe they even do 3 and 2. They've got, an external hard drive and DVD backups, and then there's a fire, they lose it all. Or there's a flood or the hurricane or tornado, and they lose it all. Thieves break in, they steal it, it's gone. So you got to get it off-site. And the best way to do this, I would add another one, that if a backup is not automatic, you just won't do it enough. You got to have it be just kind of happening without you having to think about it. That's where Carbonite's so great. You can download it right now, Mac or PC. Works great on Macs. Go to Carbonite.com. Use the offer code MacBreak. You get 15 days. You don't even need a credit card. Absolutely free. Install it and see how it works. I do recommend you do it that way because it is dependent on how much data you have, and it uses your broadband. It doesn't tie up your computer. They've put a lot of sophisticated technology in here to make sure that they don't get in your way. But when you're not using your computer or your internet, it's backing up. Always in the background, always keeping you up to date. Try it free for 2 weeks. If you like it, you get 2 months free when you use the coupon code MacBreak. Carbonite, Carbonite.com/MacBreak. Just to ease your mind, it uses AES 256-bit encryption. You have the password, not them, so it's absolutely private. Even if you don't use the encryption option, and you don't have to, it will use SSL, so it's encrypted on the way to the Carbonite servers. The Carbonite servers are, I think they're just down the road from you a little bit, actually, Andy. They're in Boston. And they are in multiple network operations centers, of course, backed up themselves. So you really have this peace of mind that your data is safe. Carbonite.com. MacBreak.com. Use the offer code MacBreak. It's a great solution, and I highly recommend it. So let's see, from Werner Hertzog. Oh, yes. So here's an ABC story. Diane Campbell, this is HuffPo, Apple Store refuses to take cash for iPad, woman says. Diane Campbell walks into the Apple Store in Palo Alto, Steve Jobs' home store. She says, I had my cash in the backpack. I went proudly up to the counter. I told him I would like to purchase an iPad. Apparently, I didn't know this, Apple's sales policy says you must use a credit or debit card. You cannot pay cash. They turned her away. Sorry, we don't take cash. Is this another brilliant Steve Jobs move or what?
No, I think it's just to make sure that it doesn't to prevent these things from running up in the reseller channel without being able to track them.
So, like, if you had thousands of dollars, you could come in and buy 5 iPads and.
Yeah, I mean, especially since they're rolling out the international release so slowly.
Is that legal though? Can you refuse legal tender?
I believe the last time I looked into it was 4 or 5 years ago on a related matter. And retailers are free to take or not take any currency or any form of payment that they don't want. So they can no longer you can't force them to take cash anymore. That you can force them to take your Diners Club card.
Interesting. Okay.
What about the thing legal tender, all debts public and private? Is that not germane?
It says that right on the bill.
It's legal tender. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to take it.
You can refuse a sale.
They have a sign over the counter: no shirt,
no shoes, no cash, no credit card.
Was it American money? Because that could have been the problem.
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, you know
if
why? Because they got a
Chinese yuan, that would have been great. No problem.
They've got a skunkworks to develop their own currency, Apple dollars, and you have to get approval from the store to spend it, probably. And that might take up to 8 weeks.
Ooh, I like it. Apple dollars.
And you can't use the logo. Don't use the logo.
How long before Steve Jobs has his own currency?
No, well, I could definitely see the rollout because have you seen the redesign of the $100 bill?
Yeah.
So you just see him with like that, like on the big display behind him, like at a keynote, saying it has some problems with it. It's ugly. It has a blue stripe that distracts from the portrait. It has colors that are never consistent depending on how you hold it. Well, we decided to take our own look at it.
It's a small white piece of paper with the word 100 on it. Boom.
That's it. Boom. Johnny Ive designed it.
We take one large piece of paper and cut it into 11 small pieces of paper, and the other piece of paper.
Actually, that's the other advantage of this new setup of mine. If I paint this wall white, and since I wear black anyway, if I just tilt myself like this and go, our first step was to ask people how to use money. And we found out that some of them spend with it, some of them gift with it. How is the modern paper not good enough for gifts? We wanted to change this attitude immediately.
We started with the idea of the breath mint. It's small, perfect, square, slender, and can be easily eaten.
Oops.
All of our tests indicate that people enjoy mints. In Japan, this is used in a very specific context.
We don't believe that we don't believe that we can sell a $100 bill at a $100 price point and still make money.
Ah.
That's why our hundreds cost $320.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
But the only trouble is you need a VGA adapter to use it.
And you can't use cash to buy it. I did get I finally got the camera adapter, and it does work with the headset. That's really awesome. That's really awesome.
I got it for my camera, and it works like a champ. Man, that thing works great.
It's a USB. It gives you a USB port.
Right.
And, in fact, if you plug in a USB headset, I plugged in the Logitech Clear Chat, you can listen and speak and record. Andy discovered this, I think.
Yep. A lot of people discovered it at the same
What the
time.
hell's...
Oh, my goodness.
Andy, are you excited?
Okay,
sorry.
Well, just for that, I'm going to be silent for about 5 minutes.
You should tell it.
No, go ahead.
You should tell a guy before you put a microphone on camera. Wow.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I got myself.
Yours is bigger than mine. What's that? What's your new toy? Is that a T2i?
I don't know. That's another 5 minutes. I'm sorry. You're in.
I'm not in the penalty box.
Yes, you are.
I'm gonna have to play a man down now.
Oh, it's MacBreak Weekly with Chris Breen and Andy Ihnatko. Chris, what's in the news this week? I understand there's another iPhone 4 released leaked out in Vietnam.
All right, everybody, show us your microphones. Whip them out. Oh, look at that! When you really come up close to the oh man, if you're
like 16 pounds.
If you're still listening to the audio edition of MacBreak Weekly,
give up.
No.
Is there a canonical
what
list
I like
of
about the Blue
things
Yeti is
that
it also has an NPR mode.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
You flip it to the switch just like this, and it gives you more presence.
Yes.
When you're talking about that elderly woman, one of only 3 in the Appalachians, who still does her own laundry by beating it against her husband.
Okay. Serious.
Sweetwater
Seriously,
is the
yes.
last speaker of
It works with the. Yeah, it works with Bluetooth. It works with the headsets and also works with some keyboards. It depends on the power requirements, and that's really the only limitation. It was, as far as I could tell from a technical perspective, it was a total accident, a very happy accident.
But they have drivers on there. I mean, that's the thing. Somebody put a driver in there.
Well, as far as I can tell, and I don't have this from the source yet, but it looks like it's due to an overlap between the way that Bluetooth drivers work and USB drivers work. It seems like a nice little coincidence that the sort of external devices that are supported by Bluetooth are also the only types of USB devices that are supported by the camera kit.
Interesting. It's a happy accident. Who knows? It might be
happy
fixed.
Accident. I mean, especially the idea of being able to just simply tote your favorite little keyboard USB and use it that way. And I'm sure that's gonna. I'm waiting for the first audio company to really exploit this and say, you know what? If we can get really good microphones like a Yeti microphone or a $100 USB microphone working, let's have a really good multi-track recording app that supports full 44.1.
I would love to see that. Yeah,
there's like an 8-channel mixer app that maybe Chris has seen. That I saw it. I wanted to try it, but not for $40.
Ooh. Have you used it, Chris? Do you know which one he's talking about?
I've seen a couple of mixer apps, but there isn't the perfect one out there yet. That's the full, digital audio workstation, which I think all of us are
a touch DAW on this would be amazing.
Yeah, because now you finally have a surface
channels?
that's large enough you can deal with instead of. They have some reasonably powerful ones for the iPhone, but the Surface is just so small, and trying to manipulate that, and you're constantly switching screens to get things done. Having it on the iPad would be a huge thing. So I'm sure any number of companies are working on it.
Should be interesting. Was it able to drive the Yeti? Because I tried it with the. It was okay. I tried it with a Shure SM58 and Shure's USB interface, and it said not enough power.
Yeah, I mean, and Yeti, Blue Microphones is actually talking about this. He sent out a press release saying, by the way, Yeti works with this. And so they're playing it up. But I've tried it I have several USB mics here, and I've tried it with a handful of a couple of headset mics work. This MXL USB 009 doesn't work with it because its power requirements.
Somebody needs to make a list of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. To that point, can I ask a tech support question?
Of course.
I'm having a lot of trouble understanding. I feel like it's kind of voodoo for me to figure out what precisely will charge the iPad. I'm frequently surprised by what will and won't work. All the
new laptops work.
Well, I heard from somebody who just got a new 13-inch MacBook Pro, and it doesn't work.
Oh.
One port on my
won't
Mac
work
Pro
when
works,
it's live. As long as the iPad is asleep, just about anything will charge it, but really slowly. But if you want it live, I have a last generation 17-inch MacBook Pro that does charge it, but my older 15-inch MacBook Pro doesn't charge it. So, and if you use an old iPhone charger, that won't do it because it doesn't have the 10 watts that's required to power the thing.
Whenever I want to power something up
I have a
faster.
2000.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say I have a 2008 MacBook Pro, and it charges just fine, just at half speed. The 10-watt adapter will typically charge it up in about 3 hours. I was charging it for my MacBook Pro, the forward port, not the back port, like the good powered one, in about I think it was something like 6 or 7 hours.
So that's it. So explain that to me. Is one of those? Why is the one near the power supplies? It's got more power. I noticed this too.
Yeah, because internally the architecture of the MacBooks, they have essentially like 2 separate USB buses. One bus is shared by the trackpad and the keypad and all kinds of other stuff. The other one is just a dedicated USB port. That's the one that has the maximum power. It's usually the one that's closer to you or closer to the front edge of the device. So that's why sometimes a device won't be powered from the back one or will be powered from the first one. You more typically see this sort of problem when you try to plug in an external USB hard drive.
So you want to use the one that's closest to you, or you just want to try and see which one will work?
Usually it's the one that's closest to you.
I'm going to try this right now on this is an old 17-inch, pre-unibody 17-inch.
I also have a Targus Travel notebook charger that works just fine. with the iPad.
Not charging.
Between my MiFi, which is total voodoo to charge, between the MiFi, the iPad, the iPhone, I know this is the ultimate first world problem, but I guess I really need to be a little more scientific. My gut has always been that if you want something to charge fast, you go straight into power.
Right. Use the adapter that comes with every iPad.
If I use my, what's that thing I've got? It's like that little white curvy thing that's got lots of plugs in it. The home
Octopus.
You know what I'm talking about? It's the thing they sell.
Power Squid.
It's the iPort or
Power
something.
Squid.
Like that.
Power Squid.
No. Anyway, it's a thing that's a little white
actually the name of the product. The Power, you ever heard this?
I use the Power Squid. I know what you're talking about, but apparently it's not what Merlin said.
Well, don't you think that Apple could have changed the look of the power adapter for the iPad? Because if you have
it's small,
multiple,
isn't it?
Well, yeah, but it looks just like the iPhone and the old iPod power adapters, and I have hundreds of these things.
I don't know where this is coming from, because my standard charger, like I usually I have a little bookcase next to my bed that charges overnight, and for that I use just random iPhone charger that I've had for 2 or 3 years.
Me too, and it works.
But it's asleep, right? You don't have your iPad's not up and running.
No, it works when it's running.
I don't notice the difference. If I plug mine in and walk away, I can't believe how many times I come back and it says not charging after it's been sleeping. I have something I want to share that I like a lot for travel, which is this Belkin. Actually, you can buy these in like vending machines at airports. It's a Belkin something. It's a transient voltage surge suppressor. But for those of you who can't see,
not
it's
a paid endorsement, ladies and gentlemen. This is just an honest recommendation.
Yeah, the something is
I know
great.
it sounds like a slick played ad, but
do any of you guys have one of these? Have you reviewed these, Chris? So for those of you who can't see, it's a 3-prong, like turning adaptable 3-prong. Go stick it in any jack, and it's basically a power strip. It's got three prongs on the front. And then on the side, it's got 2 USBs. And this thing is super handy for like a hotel room that's being a little parsimonious with the plugs. This is so crazy helpful when you travel. It's a little big.
I don't see it. It's nice, but I use something called Monster Cable. That's sort of a folding power strip where you don't have that sort of the 3 prongs sort of sticking out like that. It's actually a little power strip with 4 outlets and 2 USBs. It comes with like a 1 foot long stubby little cable, but when you don't have it plugged into an outlet, it actually wraps around the power strip, and the plug actually plugs into one of its own ports. Right.
What's it called?
It's from Monster Cable, I believe. I don't have it handy.
Oh, it's a monster thing. So you got it. Did you pay a little extra to get the gold digital connectors? Because Andy, if you're going to get that, you want the digital.
But it was
get the digital version.
Only because if I want the quality electrons, they're not going to come in through any old copper connectors.
That's right.
We're going to listen to the
an elitist, but I don't want the riffraff electrons powering my expensive electronics.
Well, if you buy the gold CD re-release of Asia, the remastered version that's on gold, you can't even play on anything but Monster. So.
As it should be.
Right.
And is that AJA, Steely Dan's album, or ASIA, the
I never
progressive?
meant to be so bad to you. No, I meant the one with Black Cow and Peg.
Okay. Peg.
And it's called the Outlets to Go power strip.
Outlets to Go. And then here's another one that Tom was in our chat room, and I think, actually he's in the studio, but he's also in the chat room. I think that you recommended the in-case travel kit at some point, Andy, and this is the combo charger that comes with it, which has prongs and a car charger and a USB, and apparently that works. And by the way, Merlin, that mini surge protector with the USB charger you're talking about, that's the BZ103050-TVL.
I'm sorry, Leo, I forgot the SKU.
Just so you know.
There's nothing that makes you feel more like a nerd than sitting there with a delayed flight trying to plug in a MacBook, an iPad, an iPhone, and a Richard Solo. I just feel like the biggest dork in the entire world. I'm just wandering around like a nomad.
You're going like this, and I need some. Have you seen my stapler?
What I like about having that Monster Cable, the Outlets to Go, is that not only is it useful, but it's also a really good jerk detector. And once or twice, like I've had this like for 2 or 3 years. They just recently came out with a version that has both the power outlets and USB. But I've had this sort of thing for a few years now. And twice in my travels through airports, I have had to say to somebody, not believe what I heard. Said, what I'm telling you is that if I unplug your notebook for exactly 3 seconds, I can have an outlet, and you can have another outlet that you can also charge your cell phone in, but you're telling me that you do not want me to unplug your notebook for 5 seconds to make that switch.
That's right, because
It's
I
like
was here
parking your
first.
SUV in
I
four
notice,
spaces.
I notice you're not using an Osborne or a K Pro, which means that you actually do have a battery in there that will power it for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
My beautiful Altair.
yeah.
I don't think I'd be very comfortable with that. I'm worried about surges in my. I don't believe yours was made in Soviet Russia, so it probably is actually rather sturdy when you unplug it. Anyway.
But you know that power outlets to go thing is not. These are not very expensive. They're around $11 or $12. It looks like.
Like
$10 on
it's just I just love the way it works. The clever idea of like you can imagine the designer like coming up with this. Well, okay, it's a 4-outlet power strip. It's very, very small, so that works. Yeah, but what if we were to make and you imagine them having the prototype without the stubby little thing. So you know what? If we made this just like 3/4 of an inch longer, we could have it actually wrap around and plug into its own socket, so there would be nothing sticking out. It would be a nice smooth bar when you pack it. I want to give the guy like $7 for a beer at his or her discretion.
So this thing has basically two other plugs. Basically, it doubles.
They make one model. They make a 3-outlet, a 4-outlet, and a 3-outlet and 2 USB rechargers in it.
Also, Andy, I owe you an apology. I am very, very sorry. I owe you an apology. Exclusive cord management to eliminate dangling power cords. This is where I was wrong. 24-karat gold-plated plug for maximum corrosion resistance and power transfer. Monster does it again.
Do we as geeks are we not allowed to buy from Monster? I can't remember.
Well, no, there was a dust-up recently about their. Didn't they
sue like a mini golf course that had the word Monster in their name?
Maybe. No, I had heard about their high-end digital USB cable.
I just love these like civic-minded nerds where you find out that they like did a really routine like, hey, you call this the Monster Cable Car, pizza. We really own Monster Cable. They're all up in arms. They're going to organize a boycott. They're organize a peace march. They're going to build a huge quilt out of used VHS tapes to protest. But then you find, but also, that they are using factories in Thailand that basically kill 80 million children per year.
Oh, we don't care about that. I just, don't want them to sue Monster Mini Golf.
Exactly.
Well,
that's what
I was talking about the USB.
That's not what Monster Cable does.
Not USB. I'm sorry, not USB. It was a HDMI. Did you hear about their HDMI cables? Did you read about this?
I mean, ridiculous. The prices.
Well, I mean, it's digital, guys. There's zeros and there's ones,
right.
And like it
works
either goes through or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Monoprice.com. That's all I have to say. However, Monoprice does not make the outlets to go, and if you want that, and I'm going to buy this because this is great. This is the but I want the one with USB, don't I, Andy?
Monoprice. What is that for?
The USB model is a little bit bigger. This one you'll be so surprised at how small it is.
$13. It's 3 outlets USB.
It disappears in your bag. Sometimes I'll just I'll just have it in a pocket because it's just so tiny.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Cool.
That's $12 to spend.
Nice.
Well, I've just bought 3 different chargers for my iPad. I'm ready now, boy. I got the Monster outlet to go. I got the combo charger from Incase. I've got the Belkin BZ103050-TVL.
There's an easy way at LAX to find out if you pass the douchebag test, which is when your flight is delayed, do you walk up to an incredibly overpriced retail vending machine
and buy something
and buy one of these out of there, and then go have a large drink.
Every time I go to LAX, they mock me for my small manhood, so I don't.
Every time I go to LAX, I think I'm in a place that has never been cleaned.
Yeah, it does look like that. It's kind of the grime of decades.
It's not the LAX of the Brady Bunch that I remember. That is a weird, ugly airport. My God.
Apparently, iPhone. We're learning more a little bit about the iPhone 4G. You guys think it'll be out in June? Andy, you got one yet?
I can say for certain that I do not have an iPhone 4G yet.
All right, okay. We count on you.
Or an iPhone HD yet.
Any of those. Looks like it'll have the A4 in it, which is the processor that powers the iPad. That's really good news.
He didn't say the iPhone Spectacular. It must be a different code name.
They're saying that in the chat already.
Different SKU. That's the Dell SKU.
Well, I have one right here, and I found it in a local bar.
Look at that. It's got that square edge. And yeah.
Well, no, it's got the old case on it, but inside.
Inside.
Yeah, inside here, there's magic.
I like it. I hope that's true that they put the A4 in there. I think that's good. Did you? How many of you? We'll do a little lightning round. Although this one we could spend some time on. Apple makes sure that you're free from porn. The late night conversation. Thank you, Apple. The late night conversation between Gawker, writer, what was his name? Tate, right? And Steve Jobs just blew me away. He spent some time at about 2 in the morning Steve Jobs took some time to set this guy straight. And it's really kind of a remarkable conversation. Did you guys get a chance to read this?
Yeah, I read the whole thing. It was not your typical like Steve Jobs reply.
It's hard to believe it was even like, Steve.
Yeah, well, because it was so chatty, especially after that guy identified himself as someone who would definitely blog about this and get a lot of hits off of it.
Do you think this is Jobs trying to open Apple up a little bit? I mean, he really has been emailing responses to people, apparently.
I would guess that it was just simply a response to an email that made it into his inbox. And once he was sort of on this, once he was in the process of replying to this email, that's what he was doing. I don't think that there was a larger message of, well, of course, I've instituted this new policy of being a little bit more open and talking informally through the blogs. No, this wound up in his inbox, and just like any one of us, turns into a, okay, I know you're high on something. I don't know whether it is an opiate, say, a hallucinogen, perhaps, or if this isn't just some dog which is really, really lucky at using that predictive text feature of an on-screen.
I love it when Steve goes, gosh. First of all, gosh, why are you so bitter over a technical issue such as this? It's really interesting. And at the end, of course, Jobs gives him the final parting blow, which really, if it were me, Ryan's kind of a bigger man than I, because he publishes this whole exchange. At the end, Jobs says, by the way, what have you done that's so great? Do you create anything or just criticize others' work and belittle their motivations? Ooh. Ow!
I think this was 2 exchanges away from Godwin, I think.
Ow! Yeah. Wow.
But I don't blame him. It was great that he kept the conversation going. Of course he was going to publish this because he'd be an idiot if he didn't.
He had a nice long conversation, a 2-hour conversation.
Yeah. And also getting a lot of good quotes out of Jobs. So I don't blame him one tiny bit. I don't like the idea that the meme from this has become Apple tries to free you from pornography. You see, they want to control you and everything you do.
Ryan did that, by the way. Ryan Tate did that. He said, if there's one thing I'll take away, it's that Apple free you from porn, which was the first thing that in the first message Jobs sent.
Well, no, because it wasn't. I'm going to free. It was a long line of it was the snarky original email was about, well, I mean, you're not giving us freedom. You're not giving us freedom by taking out these technologies and not supporting Flash. I think.
And how would Dylan feel about this? Which I think was the person.
Exactly. Dylan always stood. You really do have to use the hippie voice. Bob Dylan stood for something, man. He stood for freedom.
Revolutions.
I want people to know what has happened to Apple since that poster came out, man.
And then it says, freedom from programs is still. This is Jobs talking. Yeah, yep. He says. We know it's Jobs because he says, yep. Yep. Freedom from programs that steal your private data. Freedom from programs that trash your battery. Freedom from porn. Yep. Freedom. The times they are a-changin', and some traditional PC folks feel like their world is slipping away. I think that's kind of interesting. It is.
Well, and it proves it's Jobs, too, because he actually knows that the times they are a changing, quote, because nobody else knows.
Nobody knows that it was actually Dylan, yeah.
Give the anarchist a cigarette.
Yeah, exactly. Pull something from It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, but why pull that quote? If you're really into Dylan that much, Steve, come on.
Oh, come on. This is your criticism?
At least quote Tweeter and the Monkey Man. For God's sake, show that you got some Wilburys.
Tweeter and the Monkey Man.
That's
Tweeter and the Monkey Man. He woke up for cash.
That's very late, Dylan. I do actually like that song. I listen to that album over and over. That just shows what I know. It's no craft work. So, anything else to say about that exchange? That's it. I think it's fascinating.
I think it's weird. I think it's really, really weird. And I'm just guessing. I don't know if it's like, I don't know, maybe. I don't want to say medication. I didn't mean to imply blah, blah. But, like, he's up late.
It was 2:20 in the morning, that final response.
Well, idiotically, you can't sleep. You get up. You idiotically check your email, and something in there gets your goat, right?
Steve has more control than that. I do not believe Steve does anything impulsively. Do you?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You know better. I was just going to say, maybe it just got away from him. Maybe he stopped. I don't know.
Steve seems so controlled and so careful.
All I was going to say is that usually when mistakes are made, and I've made these mistakes too, about why Apple does things, it's with this idea that they are a brilliant, really together company that always has a plan, always does things according to plan, and that their plans always work out exactly the way they wanted to. When in truth, they are just like any company. They do things sometimes off the top of their heads, sometimes things that seem like a good idea to them at the time, and they're a bunch of human beings that, sometimes they're not going off of a master business plan or a strategy for this quarter. I really think that whoever this landed in his inbox, I've heard multiple stories about how Steve works, and that once he's sort of on task or he decides that this is something he wants to do, he's just into it. So I really don't think that this was in any way a big plan thing. I don't think that. I think it's just as what it looks like. Just someone sent you, just like, how do we begin the show with Calacanis? That he got your goat and he had to keep talking about
I'm different, though. I mean, I got to tell you, I have no control. I think I would disagree with you to this extent. I think you're right that this exchange was that way, but I think at some point, and it happened a few months ago, Steve did flip a switch. Because in the past, Steve might have wanted to have this kind of conversation and would not have had it. Look how tightly locked down Apple has been up till about 6 months ago, and there was a switch flipped at which at some point Steve said, "I want to tell our story. I'm writing these 2,000 word screeds about Adobe or DRM. I'm responding to email." I think Steve decided, and I think to his credit, if you look at how Facebook has responded to its criticism with a stone wall or very poor representation, I think to Steve's credit, at some point he said, I think I'm gonna tell our story, and it's going to be me that does it.
Well, if you have certain companies,
there's nobody else at Apple that's allowed to, so he has to be the guy that comes out and says, "Okay, look, people have been heaping criticism on Apple over, calling them fascists and Nazis and everything else you can about the App Store and how they lock down things, and Apple's always kept their own little box to put their stuff in. So that isn't a big surprise. And it may be that Steve just finally got fed up with it and said, okay, look, somebody needs to talk about this. I can't have anybody else do it because I'll fire them if they do. So I will. And I don't think that it was calculated that he said, well, I'll just wait for the next email to come in who's from a blogger, and then I'll do it. And that will be my message. But I do think that after a while, he finally felt like saying, look, I got to talk about this.
I totally agree. And I mean, I can speak to an extremely specific example. I mean, first of all, I'm thinking of 3 companies that I've visited in the past, Apple, Lucasfilm, and Pixar. 3 companies that are very, like, when I say they're involved in their own story, that sounds like a douchey brand thing, but it's true. Like, everybody in those buildings, especially Pixar, is extremely dedicated to doing something amazing. Whether they're like cleaning the blinds or changing the urinal mints or whatever, they all want to be part of putting Woody on the screen. It's like a real thing. And I think that the truth is, as much as we try to, first of all, to your point, Andy, I agree completely. I think at a certain point that story is real. I mean, the thing is, Steve, you can like or not like what he does, and you can like or not like his style. But the thing is, he is kind of the axis around which everything turns. And I'll just speak for myself. Like yesterday, I got a really nice email from a guy, and I ended up turning it into a post for my site because it ended up being the pitch that I wanted. Somebody said something, and I didn't even realize, oh, this is something I'd love to respond to in a positive way, thankfully for me. But I'm just going to say, like, I consider myself somebody who's like, I don't say I'm immune to criticism, but like I'm not that super interested in criticism from people that I think don't get it. But sometimes if somebody gets it really, really, really wrong, and if you're somebody like Steve, who I'm guessing feels strongly in his heart that he's doing his version of the right thing, you gotta imagine at some point he's like, you know what? I'm going to shut this guy down. And I mean, he's human, don't you think? There's got to be a point where some days he's like, I'm only going to be here for so long, and I'm not going to let some jerk with this audience go like tell my story. I think it's incredibly human and real, and he's probably just sick of having other people out there keep guessing what he does, why he does it. Do you think?
I'm going to go along with that as part of the reaction to I think when he was ill and people were chasing him down and stalking him essentially to find out, is Steve getting a new liver? What kind of illness has he got? And I think at one point he turned to some reporter, and talked to him directly and just said, honestly, this is personal. Can you just go away? And I kind of feel like we've all put him as this godlike creature in this automaton, and he's a guy. He's a very bright guy. He's a very focused guy. I agree with you. He believes in the message. He believes what he's doing is right. But I think he feels like there's certainly a line. And maybe he feels at this point that people have crossed the line and just said, look, we really are trying to do something cool here and something good. And in order for us to do it, we believe this is the proper strategy to lock it down so we can make it as perfect as we possibly can.
I can't share specifics of this anecdote, but I will share enough of this anecdote to say that he does take stuff personally, and he will address himself directly to people that he feels have gotten it wrong and basically wronged him in a way that's unfair, and he will address them directly. I'm sorry to be so general about that, because I don't think I'm at liberty to share this story, but basically he is a guy, like, he will write to you and he will say, wait a minute, stop. Like, yeah, it's one thing for us to like tussle with each other about like who's got the better product or whatever, but like you're not saying true things. And like the way he does it, it tends to be very heavy-handed, which I think shows that he doesn't always have complete control over the subtlety that would get the message across best. That's why he's not a PR guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he wants the opportunity, I'm guessing he wants the opportunity to go, wait a minute, you know, say what you will about all this stuff about who I am and like I'm this monster robot guy who does all this stuff. And certainly there are enough anecdotes about that to support that. But I just have to imagine at a certain point, you're up in the middle, I'm just thinking in context, you're up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh man, this... And I could totally see him.
Isn't this what we want, though? I mean, isn't this what we're looking for, which is authenticity? Somebody's not a PR flack, but the actual, you know, the guy talking and telling the truth.
There's a difference between authenticity and consistency, and I think you can criticize Apple in a million different ways, but and I'm ready to be told that I'm wrong about this. But my gut is they don't change their story that often. They don't, like, sure, he'll change his mind. He'll, oh, nobody's going to watch video on a little screen or whatever.
They change their story all the time. Wait a minute. Nobody will ever watch video on a small screen. Nobody will ever want to read a book on a device.
But no, I see that. Leo, I see that differently. That didn't happen in the same month. That happened because the conditions changed. That people were now interested in doing that.
Well, sometimes they change pretty quick. I mean,
yeah, no, like I say, I'm prepared to be wrong.
That might be disinformation that Jobs says intentionally to take competitors off. I mean, look, Steve's a good businessman too, and he may be spreading disinformation when he says we'll never have an app store. And then 6 months later introduces an app store, that's disinformation.
There's a story that I go back to a lot. I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, but I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are constantly trying to refer back to the 1984 commercial. And they're constantly calling this up as some kind of implicit accusation about how, oh, they're fascistic, Apple does all these things. Oh, how ironic that they made this commercial about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, 16
and I'm just
going
to bet you go out and ask 25 people who are younger than me who Big Brother is in that ad, and they're all going to say Microsoft.
Oh, that's interesting, because it was IBM, I'm pretty sure.
It was absolutely IBM. Yeah. And the thing is, but to your point, Leo, if they had decided in 1984 that IBM, because it made a good commercial, was who their competitor was going to be, they weren't. This is what makes Apple different. Is they don't change, sure they changed their story, but they changed it in accordance with reality, A, and B, what's going to work best for them. There's a plan. It's not just this chaotic thing where they're just throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks. Yeah. I think this is an exception, but I think in general, they respond to the market, but they respond to the market in the way that suits them. They're not chasing anybody. They're running in a way that everybody's going to go, oh gosh, where are they going? Right. Do you know what I mean? And that's why, to me, I just think that's funny because there's so many people who think that's Microsoft. And it's like, they were on great terms with Microsoft back then, right?
In fact, Microsoft, if we go back to 1997, put $150 million into Apple. And while that's chicken feed now, it was a significant investment for Apple, and it was a significant vote for Apple. It was Steve Jobs' first return keynote. He brought Bill Gates on the screen and said, "We're going to give you $150 million, and we promise to continue to develop Microsoft Office for Apple." That was a significant turning point.
Yeah, and also, but he also said, and by the way, we love Internet Explorer, and I think it's the best browser out there.
And that changed, of course.
And that changed as well, but he did. And people were kind of booing him when he said Internet Explorer. He said, no, hang on a second. And he took the crowd to task for it. He said, this is really a great piece of software. It's my favorite browser. And so certainly there was a little swap there.
Steve also said that when the iPod Hi-Fi came out, that he sold all his stereo gear.
Yeah, I bet he's sorry he did that.
Well, because he knew he could just buy. He was going to buy better stuff.
That's right. He could buy it.
It was 4 months old. He was going to throw it out anyway.
I'll bet he had a Macintosh stereo, and he was worried about namespace pollution.
Oh, it was a MCINTOSH. Yeah. Hey, incidentally, Steve did make, according to Brent Ahrens at MarketWatch.com, the worst stock market move in history. It was a $10 billion with a B dollar blunder. This is an interesting story, and I hadn't really thought about this. Back in 2003, when Apple's stock price was terrible, Apple went to its executives and employees and said, we'll swap your underwater stock options for new stock options. And Steve actually did this. He canceled his options for a smaller number at a lower price. Now, this was when Apple was trading at $7 a share. It is now well over $250. Those options that he traded in would have been worth $10.3 billion. And Brett calls it the dumbest trade ever. He's now in the... So if you say he does everything right, I mean, not that he needs the money.
Yeah, but you know what it costs to build a vault like Uncle Scrooge? I mean, he's set now. It's full. And what am
I going to do with it?
I bet it burns him every single day of his life that he only has $1 jillion instead of a quadrillion.
He has $2.5 billion instead of $13 billion.
Yeah. I bet it goes into his bouncy castle full of $100 bills and just goes up and down until the sadness
and
melts
cries
away.
and cries and cries.
Hey, it's easy for you to say, but let me tell you, after you have your first couple of billion, it makes a difference. It really does. It's the number of castles you can buy, the number of islands you can own. It makes a difference.
Do you remember
the number of livers?
I underwrite 4 shuttle missions. I couldn't be underwriting 30 shuttle missions.
Do you remember a few years ago when Scott Bourne was going on about, not going on, but when he was like, the conversation was, is it going to hit 100? I mean, that wasn't that long ago.
And Scott said, it'll hit 100, and we all went, ha. And then he said, it'll hit 200, and it's at 250. So there you go.
Have you seen the page where it shows you what?
Yes, what Apple stuff costs.
Yeah, if you bought the stock instead of the hardware.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The highest one is the... Actually, it's very close to the one I had, a PowerBook G3 250.
Which cost over $5,000 at the time, but if you would put that money into stock...
$330,000. If you bought, so no, I'm sorry, I had a Wall Street or a Pismo, but this one was, if you bought a PowerBook G3 250 on November 10th, 1997 for $5,700, if you put that $5,700 into stock, it would be worth $330,000 today.
We're going to take a break and get your picks of the week, gentlemen. And I do mean gentlemen, but before we do, it should be prudent to mention our friends at Audible. We like to do our Audible pick this week every time at this hour. Audible, before we tell you the book we're going to recommend, I would recommend you go to audible.com/MacBreak. If you go there, you can sign up for Audible. Sign up for that gold account. That's a book a week. I'm sorry, a book a month. And your first one's free, and you get to keep it, and you can cancel it anytime. So it's essentially a free book. But it's important. It's an important choice. It's not a choice you want to make lightly, because if you're not an audiobook listener, you might say, well, I don't know if I like audiobooks. How would I know? So this way, you pick an audiobook. You get a sense of whether, you like Audible and audiobooks. Now, I happen to live on audiobooks from Audible, and I know, Andy, you do too. We love Audible. You have a recommendation for us, Andy? Something you listened to recently, or?
Yeah, this one is, I have to admit that I've let my audiobooks stack up a little bit, because I've been choosing long ones and unfortunately reading paper books, which is not something I'm supposed to be doing. At least I'm reading the paper books on my iPad, so
right.
That sort of works out. But the next one that's in my queue for listening is a book by a historian who's written a series that most people are familiar with. Kenneth Davis is the guy who writes the series "Don't Know Much About History."
Oh yeah, that's
and he has a really it's not there are two different kinds of like popular history books like this. They're the kinds that are written by like trivia guys who says, "Do you know that there was once a watermelon that was so big that a family of 5 lived in it for 3 days in the New York World's Fair, eating themselves out of it until the 4th of July festivities, in which case they destroyed it with the first firework ever." And it's like, okay, that's fine. Congratulations, you were able to look things up in the encyclopedia. He writes really good narratives that not only just digest history down into more manageable chunks where you don't have to really spend 5 years reading about the Civil War. He'll tell you about one incident that will give you a big picture about all kinds of things that were going on. So I think this was his latest book. It's called America's Hidden History, which is just a collection of really wide areas of history where you may or may not be right. about things you forgot. I mean, you learn about the Pilgrims, but you don't know specific incidents about, what you don't know about the first settlers of the United States. You don't really know much about what the founding fathers were really into, and you don't really know much about the battle, what happened before the Battle of Lexington and Concord. So this is not a book that will give you an in-depth essay of anything, but it will take incidents from history that will really be illustrated in ways you can instantly relate to. He has his facts straight, which is also a very good thing for a historian to do. And when you're dealing with audiobooks, I open it up by saying that I've gotten a little bit behind because I've downloaded really big 10-hour, 15-hour, 20-hour audiobooks where you really have to get the entire story unless you have 2-hour commutes every single day. Sometimes it takes a little while to get through them. This book is several chapters that are self-contained, so that it's just enough for that. Do one of these stories from start to finish in a day or two, and then if you don't get to it for another 3 or 4 days, that's fine because you'll be starting a brand new story in the next section. So that's my pick for this time.
Did you know that Queen Isabella compelled Columbus to bring pigs to North America, which caused all kinds of disease? It's in the book.
So the Jersey Shore was born.
Hey, America's hidden history, untold tales of pilgrims, fighting women, and forgotten founders. You can get this free if you go to audible.com/MacBreak. Sign up for that gold account, and your first book is free and yours to keep even if you decide to cancel. You won't, though, because I tell you, Audible is fantastic. 75,000 titles, over 500 different devices. Go to the Device Center to check for the device you want to use. Of course, it works on all the Apple devices. iPod, iPad, iPhone. Audible.com/MacBreak. We do love them, and we hope you will patronize them because they support this show. Now on to our picks of the week, starting in the upper left-hand corner of the block, Mr. Chris Breen.
Yes. Well, I've been struggling with, I have this iPad thing here.
Yes,
and the
I've
iPad
seen
thing
that,
is a great thing. But it's like getting an HD TV where you can't just get the TV. You have to change everything in your life to accommodate the TV. So you have to get furniture for it, and you have to get a new AV system and new speakers and new this and that so you can enjoy it properly. Well, the problem with the iPad is it's not good in certain chairs. I'm in this chair I'm sitting in right now, not so good for that. So I hearkened back to my 70s roots, and I decided to purchase a beanbag chair because I can create this slouchy sort of environment that I can sit down in the perfect iPad position. And so I got one, and I have it here, and it's enormous.
Are you going to recommend a beanbag chair?
Sumo? That's the Sumo,
I'm going to recommend the Sumo. Here we go.
Are you kidding? Andy even knew the name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this thing rocks. It's $150. It's the Sumo Omni beanbag chair. It's
You're kidding me.
Oh, look, it's just.
Wait a minute. There's actually like a nerd beanbag chair?
Yeah, there's more beanbag chair here than you can imagine. It just goes on forever.
It's like he's being engulfed by an amoeba.
It is, and it's very flexible, and you can mold it to anything, and so you can use it as a tent if necessary.
Chris,
and,
you look at Chumby.
He does.
I know, this is great. And it's warm, so you can kind of cuddle up with it this way.
Oh,
and it's got the big tag.
Does it come? So how much is it?
You get her with it.
You get her with it? All right.
Yeah.
I know that beanbags, chicks dig beanbags, obviously.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah, totally.
They're like,
I like this. The Gigantor. That's the one I want. Look at that.
So my recent mate was uncomfortable with my video game chair. I love the idea there's a video game chair.
Is that what it is? What do you? So it's Chris. I mean, why do you like it so much?
Well, I like when you get the thing, you think it's going to be in one shape, like this nice round shape, and it actually isn't. It's just a very large beanbag pillow with this wipeable surface. So it's good for a lot of things.
Oh, it's a wipeable surface. You didn't mention that.
Oh, yeah.
So you can get rid of the Cheeto scum.
You can get, exactly, and that's exactly right. So it gets rid of the Cheeto scum. It can be molded into different positions. So if you want, my daughter can just flop down on it flat. It's great for that. But you can also, if you kind of put it on the label side sticking up, you can create this nice little lounge chair. And if it's not just right, you just kind of squish around in it for a while, and it finally forms to the shape. It
forms to you. Now, are you recommending the Sumo Sack Gamer?
No, I am
the Auto, the Omni.
I'm going for the Omni. It's reasonably priced at $150.
Okay.
It's large enough to hold an adult. If you go down to your local Target and you get a beanbag chair, it's really, those are kid size. But this is for the serious beanbagger out there.
And free shipping.
And free shipping. And I got my beanbag in, I think it was a week.
I'm intrigued by the Sumo Sack Gigantor. I'm just wondering, what could that...
That's more for those intimate beanbag moments.
Oh, it's like it's a two-seater?
That's when you appreciate that it's wipeable.
You're saying it's a love bag?
That's kind of what I'm saying here. It's
oh, and they also, wow, there's the Sultan.
Does your butt go numb? No, seriously, like it seems to me if I sat on beans, I wouldn't feel like...
I'm sorry?
No, I'm just curious because Leo, I imagine Leo's butt is probably more sensitive than ever thanks to his ball. But I'm curious, if you sit in this, do you get like lower back, like top buttle area? You don't. This is a dumb question.
How well supported?
The way you want, so you can scrunch it up so that if you need lower back support, you can put more there just by manipulating.
I'm just thinking of like being on like a bed that's too soft, like you know what I'm talking about, where you feel like
no, but this isn't. I mean, I'm sure that you're thinking of those old velvet bean bags of your youth, and this is not that. This is a high-tech bean bag, and it's
what is in the bean bag? It's not beans.
No, it's I don't know. There's some kind of
space-age polymer.
Yeah, exactly. NASA, ex-NASA.
I bet it's probably styrofoam, little styrofoam, BB-sized styrofoam pellets.
Yeah, actually, I have seen little bits of it coming out, and it's not that it wasn't well constructed, but I think they throw an extra couple in there
just in case
to prevent you from opening the zipper. And it is
here's
zippered.
What you're going to get.
Yeah, so you can open the zipper and you can
zippered.
refill it later on if you want to.
Oh, can you buy additional stuff?
I imagine you can, or you can just go down to your local Costco and get 50 pounds of pinto beans if you want that original kind of feel and smell.
And just a word of warning, the Gigantor is only available in the United States.
Because of the encryption.
Due to export restrictions, you may... And by the way, we've killed the site. All I can get is the top of the Gigantor.
It's because of the RSA encryption, Leo. You can't have that in Canada.
You can't have that in Canada.
No,
the Gigantor not available in Canada.
Yeah.
Also, these guys know how to market effectively. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think so. Wow, I want one of these.
Because I was at the PAX East, that big gaming expo. They had their first East Coast show, and Sumo essentially gave them like 400 of these bags. And so the huge hallway at the top level of the Heinz Expo Center was just like, those Matthew Brady shots of just like hundreds and hundreds of Civil War dead. Imagine that, only like hundreds of these big bean bags, each with like one or two gamers in them, like just playing on their Nintendo DSs, like just totally, what is the least amount of muscle of calories we can expend and just put all of our energy into our thumbs on working on these screens. I was filled with so much Sumo beanbag envy at that day, my friends. That
I just want to say, if Sumo Lounge would like to furnish the Twit Cottage, would you all? We have 3 audience members today. Would you love to be sitting in beanbag chairs right now instead of the office style seating that you're sitting in?
I am not above easy to wipe off graft.
Julie has like she's sitting in a $3,000 Barca lounger right now. In fact, Julie, there's a lever on the right there. If you'd like to recline, please be my guest. And
I'd like to answer your question, but I don't feel as though I can advise you until I myself in my office have.
I agree.
Right for myself.
Well, and I didn't realize.
Hypocritical, Andy. That would be hypocritical of us to even say until we have one of these to sit in.
I care about it. A journalist with lesser ethics might be willing to do that, but not me, not this guy.
Yes, guys. Actually, I didn't realize, but this is apparently a very competitive product category because they have a comparison chart on the Sumo site. Love Sack bean bags versus the Sumo Lounge.
Yeah, see, I would not want to send anything called the Love Sack.
Really? A Love Sack?
That's 1971.
SAC.
SAC.
Oh, come on.
And the Love Sack is a little old sack that we can.
I don't want anything that might smell like lotion after a little while. I don't want anything like that.
I can just see Mike Arrington coming on saying, "Did you pay for that beanbag? Did you?"
I paid for my beanbag. I just want you to know. I don't know about the rest of you, whether you get the swag from the beanbag place, but I paid full price for my beanbag.
Yes, and I will not accept any beanbags from anybody, but legitimate.
Okay, screw you. I won't accept it either. God damn it.
I will. I've been.
Hey, Merlin, your camera's stopped. If you press play on the camera thing,
sure.
because we want to see your shining face while you give us your recommendation of the week.
I would love to get back up on this from Andy because I think he's got a different opinion. I'm really interested. Well, obviously, I don't want to house your pick if it's not related to this. But before the show, we were talking about, it's frustrating with the iPad and I guess probably eventually the iPhone, how you move documents around. I think it's a real weak point of how it works.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to rely on either things like Dropbox that you can get to through the web, but even then you can't download it to your computer. And if there was a beta of the new software where this was a bug, it would be a problem. But there isn't, so I don't know about that. But the thing is, it's frustrating, and you want an easy way to get your stuff on here. And there is an interesting emerging class of apps that will let you do this. And so essentially, as everybody knows, every app has what? As they call it, a sandbox, right?
Yes.
You have access to the documents or stuff for that thing, and unless you're Apple and you have an API thing going on, you don't have access to others. Well, this has got to be like next to 1Password. This has got to be like just such a giant hack. This works at all. But there are apps like, I will say, Goodreader, the one that I'm going to feature in a second. The other one I've had is called Quick Office. Andy, what's the one you like?
Air sharing, is that it, Andy?
Yeah, I've got that one as well. So I'm going to focus on Goodreader. Goodreader is really interesting. It's an app that you put on your iPhone, and you basically go in and the initial setup, the kind of first run is, well, here's the kinds of things that you can have access to. You can go in and enter your credentials for example, Google Documents, Dropbox, MobileMe, Box.net, any FTP site, Gmail. There's probably others. Basically, a wide range of web dev, any kind of hosted stuff that's out there. Plus, it's got a web browser that will let you, for example, paste in a link to a .zip or whatever. The point is, this does two things. First of all, it helps you get to stuff that's out there. So if you've got Google Docs that you'd like to have on here, or you've got stuff on your Dropbox that you'd like to have on here, this gives you a little tunnel that shoots you out to wherever you want to go, and then you basically click it. It's a little bit janky to use, but if I want to go to my Dropbox and say, hey, this is something I want to have on here all the time, I grab it and put it on here. I can grab music. I haven't had luck with videos, but MP3s will work. But like these contract PDFs and stuff that I refer to a lot, I got backups of all my presentations on here as PDFs. And essentially, you go and download it, and it's on your iPad now, even when it's not connected.
How much is Goodreader? $10, $5?
I don't think it was too costly.
It was for a while the best-selling app on the store, the second best-selling, and I think that's because people really see the need for something like this.
It's definitely an itch that people are trying to scratch, and I've tried a couple of these, and I'm super interested to hear Andy's because I spent a little bit of time with the one that he likes, but this is the one I spent the most time with.
It's 99 cents. No wonder.
And it's got a neat thing where, like, if you do the whole let's see if I can get this to come up. The PDF. If you touch and hold, it gives you the option of basically like how you want to open it up. So like, my slides are on here. If I want to go out and do a slideshow. And
one of the reasons these things work is because the iPad does have this facility to send a document to another app that can read it.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Well, right now I just noticed I've got probably 6 or 7 apps that in iTunes will let me drop things in. Actually, kind of clever. I've got a script writing, like a screenplay script writing app that will handle Celtics, or I don't know how to pronounce it, Celtics or Celtics files. Right. So you can just drop them on over, drag and drop them. Kind of cool. But with this, I mean, obviously the big step in the future is going to be something like Dropbox or similar, having automatic syncing where you don't worry about it. Like right now, even something as cool as Evernote or Dropbox, there's a lot of kind of manual stuff you've got to do to get stuff onto there. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't have the price in front of me. I don't remember this being incredibly costly. It's
99 cents.
What?
That's what they say.
Jeez Louise. It's so bizarre how the cost differentials on this stuff. 99 cents seems to be the price point, though, if you want to move some units. Anyway, I've been satisfied with it. I don't love it, but I wanted to get a copy of the upcoming new episode of You Look Nice Today and throw it on here. And so I threw an MP3 on here, and I was able to go and listen to it.
That's pretty cool.
And but I'm very interested. Oh, the other one is Quick Office. And like I think pretty much to compete with this kind of app, you need to work with Dropbox and Box.net and so on and so on and so on. But it sounds like, Andy, I don't want to hijack your actual pick, but could you tell me the one you like and why? Because it would actually help me.
I like AirSharing HD for chiefly because I don't think any of these apps are really mature yet. I think it's going to take a few months before they really knock this. But I think that I don't like Goodreader's interface. I think it's just plain stupid. They also AirSharing also has an iPhone version of this app that is absolutely tops in class for the iPhone. So I'm very confident that once they get the kinks worked out on AirSharing HD, it will also be tops in class. It's going to support printing. It doesn't do that yet. It's going to support it supports web dev, and just about every other one of these apps, that's a little bit woolly. But again, I really think that this is going to be something to revisit in the next 2 or 3 months. The Dropbox app, however, might even simply say that there is no need for any. Really, you don't want to buy one of these apps. What you really want to do is just get the free Dropbox app and get a paid account on Dropbox.
Yeah, support Dropbox, and maybe at time they're going to get better and better.
I mean, right now,
because already, this is video that's just streaming directly from my Dropbox. Just through
cool.
Through the Dropbox app, and it also does that cool trick where if I go into my documents folder here, and I'm trying to find a compatible, it will also do the thing where you're talking about, where it has a built-in OS feature where one app can simply hand off a document to another, so I can save a Word document just locally onto my hard drive, take this to the coffee shop with me, then read it right here through the Dropbox app, and if I decide that I want to edit it, just tap a button, send that document to Pages or to any other Word compatible application and start editing it, and then save it right back to where
Leo, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I would like to change my pick of the week
to Dropbox.
I'm going to go with AirSharing HD. Wow, that was great. And also, just to point out,
it's hands down the easiest way to get something.
I own them all, by the way. I have every one of them. And none of them are perfect yet.
One other feature I wanted to point out, though, in addition to working through your Dropbox, it will also let you go with. If there's something you want to actually keep on your iPad, just hit the star button, and that file will be downloaded and saved locally onto your iPad storage. So once again, it is the easiest way to get documents from your desktop to your iPad, or even sort of blur the lines between what your storage actually is.
You're right,
after being a Dropbox user for about a year and a half, I instantly went from settling for the free 2 GB storage to say, nope, I'm going to give them $10 a month now and get the 20 gigs because I'm going to use Dropbox so much more.
We do 50, but there is an issue with that because as soon as I sign into Dropbox on any of my multifarious computers, it immediately downloads all the data, and it's like 12 gigs of data.
I got 53.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, Andy, that is great. I also just want to point out one thing, just because it's an interesting pattern. I think it's really interesting to look at the patterns for how people are hacking the get in, get out stuff. I should have mentioned also that most of these apps do have a sharing feature if you're on the same local wireless, a la 1Password, a la all these different apps. That's really cool. The other interesting one is things like Zeptoliner, which will now let you mail it. There's all kinds of little tricks people are doing with this stuff to get around Apple's sandboxing. That's pretty brilliant. And
there's clearly demand for this. On the other hand, I understand why Apple didn't want to put a file system on here. It makes it so simple. And people who don't want to think about this don't have to think about it.
Well, and they don't have to support that. I mean, supporting that at this point would just be a thistle, don't you think? Right. Anyway, good stuff. And if there's more of these, I'd love to hear from other people. But thanks, Andy.
Andy, your recommendation. What is your pick?
My pick is a really cool, I hate to be back in iPad mode now, but a really, really cool tool that was released for creating web apps for the iPad that look like native full-screen slideshow information presentation apps.
I like that.
If you go to this website, padilicious.com, Padilicious, padilicious.com, you will be able to download a set of services for the macOS Finder that will allow you to essentially take any collection of photos that you have and then simply turn this into a web app for the iPad. I've got it right here. And this is one of the demos that is available on the site. And really, it is as simple as just pointing. You simply select a collection of photos. You use ITC to, like an iPhoto or Aperture or any other app, to simply add the captions and add the comments to it. And it will simply build this really, really nice this really, really nice interactive
That's pretty
app
cool.
like this.
And that's through Safari.
and that's through Safari. What it does is it will also automatically upload it to your iDisk or save it to a set of files that you can then host on any file host you have. I don't know if you can actually see this with the frame rate of here in the video, but it's not just simply slideshow flick, flick, flick. It's actually like motoring in and out very nicely. All these text fields all these text fields are scrollable if there's more text than can be shown in one thing. It even see, you can scroll up, down. It even has, let's see if we can get this working. It even has it even has like background audio that it can actually use.
That's neat.
So, see, so if you want to hear, now you would probably have something a little bit more soothing than bubbling water. But there are 3 or 4 different templates for different kinds of Let's turn off the bubbling water. Turn off the bubble machine.
Turn off with the bubble machine.
There are a bunch of different templates, whether you want to do like a photo slideshow, whether you want to do like more like an ebook sort of scrolling text sort of thing. The only limitation is that it does have the final web app has to be hosted online. It can't be something that you build and then encapsulate and then distribute for the iPad. But it really is just, it's one of those really magical demonstrations of what can be done with Automator and services and AppleScript and other plugins like that. It's completely free. The best recommendation you can get for it is that it was developed by the almighty Sal Sagoyan.
Oh, you're kidding.
Apple's Iron Chef of scripting and automation.
Oh, that's neat.
And if you need a better demonstration of how great those two core technologies are, just imagine how difficult this would be, like with any other OS and any other tool. It is literally just from the Finder, select the pictures you want to be as part of the slideshow, select images, create iPad photo web app from the services menu, and then it simply works from there. It brings up a window so you can set certain options like what typeface you want to use, what layout you want to use, but there's no hand coding of any kind. It just simply builds it and deploys it. This is the sort of thing where if you're in like an educational environment and you just need to distribute content like that very, very quickly and very, very simply and make it look not like a website that's being opened from Safari, but a full screen, full bore, really muscular looking web app, this is just one-stop shopping and it's free.
Really nice. Now, unfortunately, the Apple VGA adapter for the iPad won't pick this up, right? It only picks up Keynote.
Does
it pick up Safari?
No, it works with multiple apps. I don't believe it works with Safari. It works with it works with iPod. It works with the Movies app. I have to double check to make sure what it does with Safari. I don't believe it works, but it's not screen mirroring, so it might not.
If it only did, then this would really be a great solution for any presentation. I mean, just what a great way to do it.
Yeah, especially because I mean, there's another interesting little workflow, a little service in there that will automatically. For one of the banes of people who want to do presentations from the iPad is that Keynote does not allow for the iPad does not allow you to install your own custom fonts. So whatever fonts you have built in for the iPad are the ones you have to use in your presentation. But this is a service that will simply let you highlight selected text in Keynote or PowerPoint, whatever app you're using, and just simply highlight it and it will automatically transmogrify it into a bitmap graphic so that it will render out the text so that it will display properly on the iPad. So Padalicious.com is already two pretty good tools. I think it's going to be one you want to keep an eye on if you're an iPad user.
Yeah, well done, Sal. That's cool. PADILICIOUS.com.
That's Sal's the real deal.
He's so great. We love Sal.
He is so great. And he's so modest. It's like when I met him on the set that day, the first time I did MacBreak, I was just like, oh, you're that guy. It's like meeting Santa. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, it is like meeting Santa. It is. It really is.
It's like you've done so many nice
Santa.
Yeah.
You've done so many nice things on my computer. Thank you.
Yeah. Santa meets Zorba the Greek is really how I think of it. You know.
Well, also give it a beatnik jazz guy too.
Yeah,
That's right.
He wears a beret. He's got a beret. He's a hipster.
One quick note before we leave it though. This isn't an official Apple product. This isn't an official Apple site. This is just something that Sal, because he is Sal, felt that this is too good an idea not to share it with people. So this is what he built.
He whipped it up. I bet you it's running in Automator or AppleScript. Those are his languages of choice. Very quickly, because we're really long again. We'll never do another 1 hour MacBreak Weekly show. It's just there's just no way to do it. Hey, why make it short when you got such great?
We're running out of electrons. Oh wait, no, we're not.
There's plenty of bits to go around.
Cut out my part. It'll be like 5 minutes.
How long is You Look Nice Today?
The next one is going to be about probably around 30 minutes.
I bet you guys go for 4 hours, though, for that 30 minutes, right?
I don't know. I'm blacked out by the end usually.
The last 2 hours, you don't know anything. I'm going to very quickly mention our friend Daniel Jalkut and his great product, Mars Edit. He's at Red Sweater Software, which is red-sweater.com. And Mars Edit is now in version 3. I updated from version 2. Lot of nice features. If you do a blog, and it works with Tumblr, it works with WordPress, anything that supports the Blogger API, which is pretty much everything these days, it is a great way to create your blog entry locally on your desktop, upload it, reblog it. Very powerful. You can also, if you want, use TextMate or BB Editor or another editor suite. It's Daniel just keeps making this better.
The WYSIWYG has come a long way with this one.
Yeah, and that's really the big improvement I think in 3.0 is the WYSIWYG.
This is the one, like, if you're doing corporate blogging or you're doing anything, I'm not going to fall back on the $ stupid relative thing. But if you've got somebody who isn't a TextMate nerd like I am, and doesn't want to have to learn XML, RP, just set this up for them and just let them run. And it's pretty smart about how it works. You can have local drafts. It's a beautiful app, and Daniel is a gentleman.
He's a nice guy.
His support is so patient and kind, and he just runs a really good company. He's a good human.
If you use Aperture or iPhoto or even Lightroom, you can see your media files and drag them right in there. But yeah, it's the rich text editor that's really been improved. So you don't need any HTML. You just write in a rich text editor and it works. Highly recommended. You could try it for free. Mars Edit is from red-sweater.com. Upgrade from a previous version for $15, brand new $40. And that is our show for the day, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Chris Breen, our good friend at the Macworld.com magazine. He's a senior editor over there. Speaking of gentlemen, a fine man with wonderful hair.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, for being here. We really appreciate it. Merlin,
always happy to be here.
Merlin Mann at 43 Folders. He gave me that look like he got me in the spotlight. 43folders.com. Great to have you on board. And, of course, there it is. He's tickling his iPad.
Thank you very much for having me on, Leo. I appreciate it.
You look nice today. Great podcast. The funniest podcast in existence.
At long last, after months, after long deliberation, the show that we did last week at Max FunCon, which I was very pleased with, will go up very soon.
Good. It's youlooknicetoday.com, a journal of emotional hygiene.
You'll learn what it means to be in the shower and make number 3.
Oh, dear.
Look it up.
Oh, dear. It is not for the children, unless they like number 3 jokes. And finally, Mr. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. Always a great pleasure. He's frozen solid.
Carbonite.
He's in Carbonite.
Just doing a bandwidth test here. I'm not really sure. I'm using this high definition camera. Also, I'm see if I can break Verizon FiOS finally.
Oh, are you in FiOS? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you. I don't know if I've ever done FiOS as pick of the week, but it's in vogue to like hate your cable company and hate your any phone company. But you know what? Last night I downloaded like 9 gigabytes worth of ISOs for an OS thing I had to download. And when you click on a download link for something that's 6 gigabytes and your browser says come back in an hour and 40 minutes, I'm like, wow. That was a good decision.
I'm so jealous. Yeah. I did a conference call with some people in Italy, and they're like, "Hey, put that on the iPad. We don't get it for another 2 weeks." And like you with FiOS, I'm like, "Oh, I would so kill for FiOS."
Yeah. Well, not available in your neck of the woods, Merlin.
No, it's Comcast here. Comcast. Now, do you notice it, Andy? Have you noticed the thing where you go somewhere else and you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how slow this is"?
I just came off a week on a cruise ship, so
nothing slower than that.
What I was doing like for the first 2 days just to make up for lost time was I just basically created a page that was just nothing but like scribble and static. I scanned it in and kept uploading it and downloading and uploading it and downloading at uncompressed TIFF 400 DPI, just because I felt as though I had lots of bandwidth coming to me that I was not able to use last week. So.
Yeah, as you probably forgot your serial adapter.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, thanks everybody. We appreciate you joining us. Don't forget, of course, MacBreak Weekly is available on iTunes at twit.tv/mbw and video and audio now. And of course, you can watch on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/twit. We will be doing, for those of you watching live, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., bright and early, we will be doing live breaking coverage of Google I/O, the big Google developer conference starts in San Francisco tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Tom Merritt and I will be covering it live because we believe there will be some very big announcements that will impact everybody, even you Mac users. That's at live.twit.tv from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific, noon to 2 Eastern Time, 1600 UTC. Live.twit.tv. Thanks, everybody. Get back to work now. Break time's over.